There we go. Got the hang of this now. Now I know when it starts.
Did it start?
Yeah. We're underway, man. As if, wow, we've been friends. It feels like we've been friends for longer than we have. Isn't it crazy?
So crazy.
Don't they say time flies when you're having fun?
Huh. They do say that, Mitchell.
Is it true though?
It's time flies when you're here.
Yeah.
You gotta think about all that other stuff. You're just chilling. You're like, oh.
Just present.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's why they say the present. It's like a present.
Yeah.
Nice, man. I really want to have an open conversation about this because you and I talk all the time, and I know that this is really going to be supportive to people. The journey that we walked together on really having effective communication, like I've never experienced in other relationships, where we're able to go through constructive conflict and friction. Be like, no, you're wrong. No, you're wrong. But wait, hang on.
Why would you do that? Like, what was that about?
Yeah, like that doesn't make sense. Then it's like, okay, we agreed to disagree. And then we go on over time. And then it's like, oh, I get it now. And then we talk it out. And so let's just jump right into it.
And I think I don't think now we agree to disagree. Like we never do that anymore.
Yeah.
That was when we didn't have the ability to okay, let me let go of my bullshit and then talk it out for real.
Yeah. And why this video matters is because many reasons. One is communication is how you develop your relationships. And if any of you watching have a relationship with anybody, whether romantic, friendship, whatever, business partners, communication is going to be what allows you to open up to the next levels, or your lack of communication is going to keep you stuck or actually spiraling downward. And so that's why this video is so important. And we're going to make this very practical so that people can see little tricks and just kind of a way of looking at communication that could really bring your relationships to a deeper, more fulfilling level. And also it's quarantine time. So all y'all, I know you don't have anywhere to go for the next 10 days, 14 days, maybe even longer, but you still got your phone, you still got the internet, so you can have those conversations. And you got the people, like a lot of people are at home with their spouse or their family. And so this will serve as a catalyst to create the space and time to really have some deeper level conversations.
Nice, baby.
Grid layout. Now you can see us both.
Nice. I would say one thing that's pretty cool is when you acknowledge how important communication is. And I know this isn't true for every kind of relationship, but it's like one of the ways in which we measure, what's the state of, your relationship and that other person. Oh, well, we don't talk anymore. What does that say? Right. Mm-hmm. And it's like a good measure. It's like we kind of not so aware with awareness, but we use our communication with somebody else as the measure of how good a relationship is, because you don't really, the fundamental word of a relationship is just what connects two things, point A, point B, and what connects it. But for humans, the reason why we're so, we're humans is the way in which we communicate through words and just connecting like this, and all the words that come up with my body language and all that stuff. Because people say, what about body language? It's like, yeah, your body language indicates words, like here, oh, bored, or like here, like angry, like it's the words that come up. And so that's why it's important to clarify all these things so we don't have emotions. So take it away, Mitch. What are we gonna jump
into? Okay. It was a cloudy day in the Mile High City of Denver. and Asif and I had talked a bit earlier that day. It was a Sunday. And then I got to meet a lot of very cool people. Asif really brought me into this whole world of some just higher caliber people than I'd really ever been around. And we're at a Mexican restaurant. So we had walked, right? And we get to that Mexican restaurant and we're all going around, what are you ordering? Okay, chips and salsa, right? And Asif and I had been going back and forth all weekend, but at this particular point in time, we were
Up to that point, was the conversation good? Like, where were
Oh,
you?
really good. Like, remember we were hanging out with
Lunchtime?
with Chris and Stanley.
Yeah.
That was the day before, and we're just hitting it off. And you had me really. There were a few words that I used that you challenged me on in like very respectful way. But it was like you weren't just gonna let me just like you throw a word like spirit, and spiritual around. And you're like, wait, how are you defining spiritual? And then you're like, okay, hang on, let's actually look up the definition. Where does that word come from? And it's and it was like the root of it is spire, like SPIR, which is like to breathe, like respiration. And I was like, huh. You're like, yeah. So it was cool because you in a lot of conversations we just throw words around, and a lot of people are like, oh, words, whatever. You get what I'm saying. But you had the willingness to actually challenge me on that, which I really appreciate because I like words. I see the power in words. And if we aren't walking around with clear definitions of words, our relationships are going to be limited.
That's what it means on the same page, right?
Yeah, exactly.
like
a book with words. Yeah. So okay, so we had like hit it off, and we had built enough rapport where I was like, okay, this guy's cool. We may disagree on some things, but like there's some value here. So we're like sitting at the Mexican restaurant, like starting to talk about some deeper concepts. And we don't have to get too in depth into it because it could be kind of controversial here on Facebook. But we were talking about energy. And that phrase of everything is energy. And I was using the word without even clearly having a definition to what I'm saying when everything is energy. And you're like, yo, hold up. Look at it this way. And I was like, dude, I kind of closed off. I was like, yo, have you even read, like, we were talking about like Kevin Trudeau's newsletter and some stuff that I consider to be very high level. And so I was sitting on my high horse, like, oh, Asif, you haven't even read that part of the newsletter. Have you even done that exercise? So I was almost like, if I'm really honest with myself, I kind of condescending, like, oh, Asif doesn't know. And then you had challenged me, and you're like, oh yeah, like those Abraham books and everything. Like, yeah, that's cool, but like, this is what's really going on, and this is how it works. And on one hand, I was like, dude, you don't even know. But then on another hand, I was like, wait, hold up. I know Asif has made more money than I had at the time you had, and you had a level of like confidence in your certainty in what you were saying. You had more certainty than I did in what I was saying.
And let me be clear. Let me jump in at this point. It was the first time that I really started, opening up about like, pushing myself to call people out on their bullshit, quote unquote. But I was going in a little bit. It wasn't the best way, just to be clear. And not that I was being a complete dick, but I was like, well, dude, like, like, come on, I wasn't walking someone through a process. I was just like, here, like, this is what it is. So it's just like, so just to be clear, so everybody has that perspective. It wasn't me being like, oh, well, like, have you ever considered this? And Mitch was like, fuck off. It was like, I was like, oh, but dude, that, like, have you thought about it like this? Because if you really look at it, that doesn't really make sense if you think about this. It was a little more abrasive. So
yeah, and that's what triggered me in that moment, because you called me out on my bullshit. When I thought I was clear of like, oh, this is what, when I say the phrase, everything is energy, this is what I mean. And this is why that allows you to manifest and all this stuff. But you're like, yo, if that's really how it works, like, do you have the results for that? And so you started like calling me out, and I got triggered because something that I was holding to as a belief, I thought it was true, but there's like beliefs, and then there's real knowingness and actually knowing. And I thought I was at knowing, but in my honesty, I was still at belief because I hadn't proved it fully to myself on all levels. And you basically just called me out on it. And we were like going back and forth, and then some other people at the table were getting into it, like, oh yeah, as if you didn't read that newsletter. But you're just like, you're like, yo, this is what it is. And I was like, damn, this guy's like, I'm like, is this guy just being a stubborn asshole, or is this guy really serious? so I was like, okay, how teachable am I? Am I willing to learn? Because maybe there's something I don't know here. And then by that point, like we were going back and forth throughout the meal, and I was like, I'm not going to be able to convince this guy, but I'm still like in my ways. But then at that point, we had kind of agreed that it wasn't really settled, but like
I was like, we'll kind of like we'll come back to this like at another time,
yeah,
because I know that we were gonna have a longer term relationship at that point, right?
yeah. And at that point, I was like, I see the value of this guy and like the other people that I'm meeting. So I know that there's a long-term friendship here. So we don't need to resolve this now. And then I had seen like Avery had got up, and I was like, I gotta talk to this guy. Cause then I went to Avery and I was like, Avery, what do you mean? Like, did you read that newsletter? All this stuff. And then Avery just totally called me on all my bullshit in a very respectful way. But he's like, dude, you're saying these words. Do you even know the definition of that word? I'm like, well, it's like this, right? He's like, dude.
Like, do you even know what you're talking about?
Yeah. And that was when it was like my whole, it was like I had all this momentum, but it was like fake momentum, and it all just came to a stop. I was like, whoa, how teachable really am I? And so throughout this whole thing though, and how it relates to effective communication is one, I was willing to be wrong. I was willing to find the truth. And if that meant that I was wrong in my current definitions and understanding of reality, then okay. Because I care about the truth more than I care about being right. Because I'll just align myself with the truth, and then I'm actually right. But then I'm in agreement with other people too. And that's like, if you really understand the significance of what I just said there, like that's so powerful to be in agreement with truth and other people and have accurate definitions and all that.
I want to talk about my perspective in that, because the main point is,
yeah, please.
In which, because we've done this before, we've walked ourselves. I remember it was one phone call, one of those 3-4 hour phone calls where I was like, yo, remember back like when we first met and we had that lunch, and then you saw the presentation, we were talking, and then the dinner, and then like walk me through that. And we were going back and forth, and I was telling him like, yeah, dude, I was unaware, because my main thing to walk through was, so I always say your main thing is being open to like a new perspective. And my main thing was like my lack of awareness and how I was presenting things. And right. And so one of the things, like I remember it came to a point in the dinner where there was probably like 18 of us, like there was a significant amount of us, right? And Kian it was like a long table, right? And Kian looked at Asif, are you giving them level 13? Don't do that, man, or something like that. Because he could tell that like you and there's a couple other guys there were like I don't know, like, and I didn't even realize, because I was so like excited to be sharing, that I wasn't really considering how each person was receiving it versus now. It's like very, very different. But it was only through, like I knew that at the time, but really hearing it from you, us being able to talk it out, it was so important to me, especially just hearing, because again, you're very sociable, and you're very kind, and you're very gentle, and you're very good with people. So you would never like create conflict to be more than what it is. Like you wouldn't be like, as much as we were like intellectually combating, right? There were some other things that you're like, oh, but this guy, like he's like, you kept all that stuff because you wanted to be kind and respectful, right? But being able to talk about, because we built that relationship, because we had trust, that if I say, oh, Mitchell, I saw you as this in the past, and you're like, oh, Asif, I saw you as this in the past, we would laugh about it. We wouldn't be like, oh, right? Because we have trust. And this is like a real fundamental thing as we get to talking it out, is that there's the one point of trust of like, if you're in a relationship, like a romantic relationship, and you have the trust of, we have an agreement that, it's me and you, like you're not going to be with anybody else. You're not having sex with anybody else or kissing anybody else or all that stuff. That's one aspect of trust, like a loyalty. But the other point of trust is, hey, Mitch, if I tell you something or call you out or bring up something that I'm worried about between us or whatever, are you going to react? Are you serious, dude? Like, why would you? Are you going to say, okay, tell me more? And it's only when you have that kind of trust that whoever your partner is. So right now, this is our partnership. Maybe it's a romantic, my girlfriend, right? It's like, if you're kind of frustrated that your partner's not telling you stuff, or you don't feel comfortable telling your partner things, in business partner, romantic partner, it's because we have these emotions inside of us of like, oh, I remember last time I told them this, they like tripped on me. Or your partner is thinking that about you, of like, you tripped out on them last time. And so it's really, really important to work through that stuff. But because me and Mitch, we built that trust, we built that like more unison mentality, and we're here for harmony. That's how we got around to getting to talk through it. And you use the process, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that helped because I was aware enough to know I wasn't in a position to actually hear you out in that first conversation. Because I was like, wait, you're saying this? Okay, let me fact check this with some other people.
Yeah.
So then I like ran after Avery, talked with Avery for a while, and then I was like, okay, shit, I think I'm wrong. I think Acid was onto something, but I'm still not at the point where I can, like, I just need more information.
Exactly.
But I knew there was no rush per se. Exactly. But I also knew, don't delay this just for the sake of delaying.
But that was the main thing, is like, you were teachable. I remember when we were talking about it, you were like, I was like, this, but you know what? Maybe I'm just screwing myself here. Let me listen. Mm-hmm. That was like, that's what I need. That's what you need. That's what everybody needs, is like the willingness to talk it out, the willingness to learn, the willingness to be like, okay, I'll consider it. I know that I'm like really like, oh, but that consideration, it's like the thing that has been you've been the best living example of that I've seen so far. And David Coulon Pepe as well. He's amazing at that. But you guys that's why you've accelerated so fast. You grew so fast. Because you never were like, oh, I don't need, oh.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm so stoked for some new people too that I mean, or not even new people, just old friendships I've had that are starting to really take some of these things very seriously. Like we talk about, like, Jin, Your Wish Is Your Command, Destiny, TT, all that. Like Cal Richin. Cal, if you're watching this, shout out to you, man. You're 10 and 10 on teachability that I've seen so far. So I'm stoked for him to get part of this whole group that we have. And so now how we can effectively share this with other people, because again, we're all in freaking quarantine. Like, it's shifted right now. You don't have your typical routine. We all still have phone service. At least most people in my network. I don't know what it's like in other countries. I don't know what it's like in different areas, but just generally speaking, we all still have phone service. We have Wi-Fi, and you have people around you. What are you afraid of? Are you afraid of rejection? Are you afraid of that you don't know how to express yourself and communicate it? It's like that is your growth edge, and you're going to keep suffering until you step up and have these kind of conversations with people. And I know it may be unpleasant, and maybe you don't know how to have that conversation. That's okay. Like, I'm open to chatting with people through like Facebook Messenger. If you're like, hey, I saw that video and I'm serious, I want to be able to have these deeper conversations with people. I don't know what to do, but I'm at least willing to get to a level of talking it out. Because like Asif, you and I have, because that was even probably 6 months ago, we had that follow-up conversation. But then even ongoing, I mean, even the other week when we were like working through a business deal, and you had said something, and I noticed like after the call, I was like, ooh, like that didn't sit right with me. I don't think Asif intended it that way, but that didn't sit right with me. So if anyone's watching this and you've had that situation where like, that's not sitting right with me, that's a sign that you ought to have that conversation, or you're going to hold on to that emotion, and that will fester. There's a consequence to holding on to that emotion. And that's just life, right? If the more you repress yourself, the more you don't express what you know you should, that will literally manifest in your body as stress, illness, things like that. And I'm not saying that to scare anybody. I'm saying that because I've seen it happen time and time again, and it's true. That's how reality works. No amount of positive thinking is going to help you with that. Real positive thinking would be taking the initiative to work through it.
Hmm.
Yeah. Thoughts
And
on that,
so,
Asif?
yeah, it's like that last point of real positive thinking is like positive, redefining positive meaning to move forward. Like how you think you need to move forward. And then just be like, no, 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 no. Like I just try to focus on what's good and what makes me feel good. Like that's what's important. And the best thing, the phenomenon that you'll experience is the timeline in which you let event that makes you feel bad to solving that event that makes you feel bad, letting that shorten and shorten and shorten and shorten and shorten and shorten and shorten. So I remember after the gin event, it took us probably a couple months, and then we revisited it. And it wasn't a problem. Well, I don't know. Maybe you were feeling like, that's
yeah, I was pissed. No, I'm just kidding. but it did go through my mind. I'm like, huh. But that was because it was like an existential philosophical type thing.
It was like everything. Yeah.
It's like and I'm like, wait, you mean to tell me I have to like rethink how I interpret like physical reality? so that's why I was like tripping on it. But that's what I loved, dude. It's like the fact that we met each other and after 3 days we were already having that kind of conversation, and that we kept having that kind of conversation of such a big thing.
Yeah.
We made it practical. It's not like we're like armchair philosophers, like, ha ha ha, yes, this is what.
But you're right, because off the bat, you sent me like voice clips, and I like
you sent me that image from NASA of like, this is what this is like the whole electromagnetic spectrum, and you're like, so yeah. But I was like, oh, that actually really helped.
The live video. That's why I'm on my phone right now.
Okay, yeah.
But no, continue.
Yeah, and so what I really appreciate in friends, and what I found to be so valuable, is to have friends where we can talk about these very big things, like what does it mean to be alive? What is the universe? What is physical reality? What is energy? What is thoughts?
What do you hear? What happens after you die? What happens before you die?
Yeah, and it's like those questions that, if you're honest, like you have those thoughts. Maybe you've repressed them, but like you have them. But to then make all of that practical to like, how do I make more money? How do I have better relationships? How do I have more gratitude throughout the day? How do I connect with people? How do I stay sane when I'm quarantined from coronavirus? How do I not go into fear? Like that. So it's balancing those extremes of like contemplating existence to like practical day to day. How do I feel better and support others around me to feel better? Yeah. And everything in between. That's what's so cool, and that's what I look for in friendships. And like, there's a lot of people I talk to, but would I consider you like a super like hardcore friend? That takes time to develop. But like some people like Asif, like you and I know Kian, Mustafa, all of us, like we hit it off and we just like to the point now where like we can talk about anything, and it's really, really cool.
That's what I wanted to touch on, is like the time between when we first needed to like resolve that kind of conflict. And it wasn't really a conflict, but we figured it out. It was like months. But with that business deal that you were talking about, when I kind of said something and it kind of rubbed you the wrong way, and I could tell that things were left a little bit not uneasy, it was like within 20 minutes we talked again and result, or like like within the hour, right? And so as that looks in like romantic relationships, is you want to get to the point where maybe it's like a week later, it's like okay, I need to talk about this thing that's been bothering me from last week. That's going to be a huge step. Or even from last month or a year or 5 years or 20 years ago. Bringing that stuff up is going to be a huge step. Now, for the people who are already kind of have a line of communication where after a certain amount of time, when it's causing you enough pain, enough emotional pain, where you bring it up, what you want to focus on is condensing the timeline, where to the point where it's like, okay, it kind of messes up your day, but you guys are laying in bed at night, or maybe you call each other at night and it's like, hey, I just really wanted to talk about this because when we were together earlier, it wasn't right. To the time where it's just 1 after hour, and the ideal thing is in the moment. In the moment, and this is how you know you have a great relationship, because you have trust and communication. In the moment, whatever you're going through, you can share that with other people.
Yeah, and one helpful tip with that is, like, times I've had disagreement with people, is this kind of like a rule of thumb. If you can always go back to understanding like, okay, what do we agree on? Like if it's a girlfriend boyfriend relationship. Did you have something you want to say? Oh. Of like in a romantic relationship, you say, okay, I know what can we both agree on is that we want to have a fulfilling life together. Okay, cool. Or even if you're not at the point of like super commitment of like, we want to get to the point where we have like a fulfilling time together and understand maybe what that could look like long term. But establish what is that agreement first, or like a friendship or a business partner. It's like, okay, what do we agree on or we're working to agree to? Okay, cool. So we're in agreement on that. Okay, now let's look at the ugly stuff. Okay, so like you said this and I was feeling this way and it may be my fault, maybe yours, but because then you know where it's headed. It's not just like, you said this and it pissed me off. And now what? Now they just react and then, oh, worse, worse, worse. I'm moving out. I'm threatening to move out, right? It's like, it just gets nasty. So remember, like, the more you can understand what is that agreement, that's the purpose you're going to through those conversations. So it helps to get there.
And I think that's the main thing, is that you and I were united in the principle that both of us held true of, okay, we definitely want to get the most out of life. Yeah. That's why you kept challenging yourself the very first time. And that's why I really wanted to express that. And I was like, I can't allow anybody around me to remain in their bullshit, because I was grateful for when somebody else called me on my bullshit. Even though it was like this, I knew that because I trusted that person, that it was at the end of the day, after I was able to see it clearly, I'm like, okay, thank you. I appreciate you pushing me.
Yeah, exactly. And that, because that is so valuable when you have someone, because it takes a certain kind of person to be willing to call people on bullshit. That's a concept Drake Pearson had shared that with me of tacit approval.
Yeah.
And so like, if you were to just let me go, oh yeah, Abraham is just 100% accurate and all this stuff. And if you didn't say anything, that's an example of you giving what's called tacit approval, which is doing such a disservice to everybody. And I would keep creating consequence in my life because Asif didn't speak up. So it's like, who do you need to be the kind of person that can call people on their bullshit in a respectful way, where it's getting to a greater purpose and greater sense of agreement, but where you aren't afraid of pushing someone's buttons. And they may not talk to you for a week. Shit, you may burn the bridge, and then it may trigger that person so much they never talk to you again. But at some point, as long as you know what you're doing is right, that's so important. Like, I would, if you have a notebook out, anyone, I would recommend writing this phrase: I know what I am doing is right. But your mind may say that's bullshit. I don't even know if I can trust myself. Or you may be like, oh yeah, I know what I'm doing is right. When you can get to the point where you can honestly say, I know what I'm doing is right, you open up a whole new level of reality. But that takes serious self-trust. That takes self-honesty. You may still be wrong on stuff, but you're right enough to know that you'll be able to discern over time, am I still being trustworthy with myself? Is what I'm doing actually right? Or am I doing stuff that's wrong and then make amends for it and then get back to doing what's right? But that level of self-trust, I cannot state with enough emphasis. Get to the point where you can honestly say, look yourself dead in the mirror, as if you died. Let's say you died and it's like your life review and it's judgment day, whether you think it's God on the clouds judging you or you judging yourself, whatever, judgment day. And can you honestly look at yourself and say, I know what I was doing was right to the best of my ability? Because in that moment, there's no bullshit then.
if somebody does, like, how did you develop that self-trust?
Oh man, I didn't have it. And even at the time that I met you, because that's why you threw me off so much in that first conversation at the Mexican restaurant. Because I was like, this is what it is. This is how reality works. And I have some proof that it kind of works this way. And some other people said something, and that's why I believe it's this way. And then you're like, dude, what are you even saying? Like, how are you defining that? And I was like, oh shit. And then it had me re-question everything. So then I took seriously as, okay, Asif, if you're telling me that as long as I keep going through and like pulling apart words and like doing a specific processes to actually really define words, not every single word ever in the dictionary, but like the important words, having a clear definition of those. What does relationship mean? what is love mean? What does friend mean? Like that those kind of words. So pulling those apart, so I actually understood it subconsciously too. So like using technotutor and things like that.
Mhm.
And then when you shared destiny and the principles of destiny with me, you and Kian did. And I first looked at it, I was like, what is this thing? Like, I don't know. I'm already part of Jin. Like, I don't need something else. You're like, no, just look at these principles. Do you resonate with these? And at first I was like hardcore skeptical. And then I was like, you know what? Okay, this is pretty legit. Then it was just a process of time and time and time putting into those two things in particular, Technotutor and DIP, DIP Lite. It's
Of course, right?
the free version. Yeah.
Yeah.
To become aware of the extent of how much bullshit I was allowing in my life, that was a bit uncomfortable. But again, I'm the kind of person that wants to know the truth. So for whoever's watching this, if you're the kind of person who's like, I'm cool, like ignorance is bliss, man. Like one, okay, you're entitled to your own opinion, cool. Two, for the real people who are looking for like, I want to know the truth of reality, even if it's ugly, even if it hurts. I would rather know the truth than live in a delusion. Ignorance is not bliss. And that willingness and desire to keep finding that for myself over time and being tested and new situations come up and all that, that's how I develop self-trust. I'm telling you, that feeling of self-trust is the most valuable thing ever, because one, no one can ever take that from me. Two, I actually trust myself. So now when I put something on my calendar or I say, oh, Asif, I'm going to call you later, I just do it. I don't have to, like before, I would waste so much freaking time, energy, attention on, yeah, I'm going to put this on my calendar. I'm going to put it on my to-do list, but like, I'll probably do it. Now it's like, no, I do it. That's what I do. That's who I am. I'm the kind of person who follows through. And that is freaking priceless.
And that's what we want to manifest in our relationships at the end of the day, is like, you have to develop that in yourself. When you stop judging yourself so much, then you'll be willing to look at yourself more. In the same way that once you do that, if somebody else says something to you, oh, like this has been bothering me, you won't judge them for that. And you'll be able to hear what they have to say more. So if we come full circle, man, at the end of the day, the thing that you and I like really propel our relationship, and I know that you got a lot of value out of it because I watched you skyrocket, not from just our communications, but your willingness to communicate with everybody in a group. Group's the most important thing. And what that did for me, watching you grow, was like, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. It did so much for me. But it was our individual ability and willingness to talk it out. So us talking out whatever's conflict was created between us, and just things that we were unsure about, you know? And then you doing that with other people, me doing that with other people, and uniting, right? Because at the end of the day, all we have is relationships. I always ask people, you know, like if you got when they're talking about how they want to be millionaires and all this stuff, it's like, if you got the chance to be on an island alone with like billions of dollars, unlimited money, billions of dollars, but you're just on an island alone, nobody around you. Or would you rather be, you know, if you had to choose one or the other, poor, just getting by, but with your loved ones around you? Mm-hmm. Everyone always chooses the second one. And now it's not to say that in real life, those are the two only options. It's saying that what's important to you is relationships. Now there's a way in which you can make money and enhance your relationships at the same time, but you have to be willing to talk things out, or else you're going to live in this ignorance of, oh no, Mitchell likes me, like we never have any problems, and Mitchell's like, oh, that freaking idiot, and I'm missing out on opportunity with Mitchell to really develop something real. Mm-hmm. So my invitation to anybody, and if you want to extend the same, feel free, but my invitation to anybody who's watching this, any old friends of mine, who, regardless of if we talk, we don't talk, I don't care. If you want to practice this, then message me and tell me your thoughts about me, the good, the bad, the ugly. And I'm not going to hold it against you. I'm not going to react to it. I just want you to get the practice of reaching out and telling somebody what's been going on inside of you. Now, I know most people aren't going to do that, but what I would highly, 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 highly encourage is just reach out to talk, to develop communication before even talking it out, just communication, especially during this time now where you can barely even leave your front door. It's much more of an opportune time to connect like this.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, same. And again, this video isn't just for everybody. It's like we're looking for the people who actually care about effective communication and understand the benefit of effective. Like if you're an effective communicator, there's really nothing you can't do. I mean, obviously you can't fly, but you can't break the laws of physics. But if you're an effective, like look at the people at the highest levels in the world. Jeff Bezos, whether you agree with him or not, or Donald Trump, whether you agree with his policies or not, or Oprah, or whoever, like whoever you admire at being like, they got success. I guarantee they're an effective communicator. So that's why we do that. That's why we made this video. As of when I usually just talk about the stuff on the phone, but like no, like there's other people out there like this, and yeah, and so for those of you who understand the importance of effective communication, or just more curious about it, like reach out. And also for those of you that point about that hardcore willingness to figure out the truth, again, you're either going to go for the truth or not the truth. There's really just two options. It is pretty black and white. And that's those people reach out, because I'm not claiming to say I absolutely know all truth ever. Like that's not what I'm saying. But we found a few things that have got pretty awesome results and manifestations in physical reality that prove that we know a few things about how to make life a lot better for ourselves and for others. So,
and if we could remove like the whole ego point of, oh, we know more, like I can confidently say that I put more time, and let me know if you agree. We put more time into focusing on and discovering what's real in reality and what's not real, and how the human works and what's going on. Like we put a lot more time and attention to figuring out those things.
Yeah, exactly. It's not like I'm so good, I know this. Yeah, and it's like, yo, we're resources that are available. And we want to share stuff with you, and then you can take it further, right? You can share it with other people. And it's like, that's really how we effectively communicate, not just as like one-on-one, but then as a community. And that's what ripples out into the world. So yeah, that's my thoughts. Any concluding thoughts with you?
Well, Mitch, I just want to say, I appreciate our relationship, and I hope we continue talking things out. And I mean, this is it's a really fundamental one for people in romantic relationships, because even if you don't completely understand this stuff, or like just listen to this for entertainment, if you see that there's some point in here that's like, okay, yeah, like that makes a lot of sense, which is obvious, but in terms of how to do that, because there's one thing being like, okay, yeah, I know what I need to do. I just need to go and sell, or I know what I need to do. I just need to talk it over in relationships and not get angry and not react. It's cool knowing the instructions, but it's about being able to do it. If anybody wants support with that stuff, that's what we're here for. Because me and Mitchell, we've walked a process of going through those reactions, letting go of those reactions, coming back to the same situation and not having those reactions. So if we can support anybody with that kind of stuff, then that's what we're here to do.
Yep. Thanks, Asif. I appreciate our relationship too. So.
Oh, hell yeah.
This is just the beginning, baby.
And the glasses and the white shirt and the headphones, man. I got to get sweet headphones like that.
Yeah, dude. It's Wednesday, you know. This is a typical Wednesday vibe. Yeah, it's rainy outside, man.
It was nice out here today. It's all sunny and stuff.
Nice. Go enjoy the sun then. All right. Thanks for taking the time, man.
Take care, guys.
Bye.